The November 19th runoff election for the presidential candidacy of Argentina will soon be coming into fruition, with the socialist Peronist-type candidate Sergio Massa coming into the fray to challenge the libertarian candidate and anarcho-capitalist Javier Milei. And with it, we see that this is a fight for the soul of the country. And the thing that I find so fascinating about this is the divide between the generations and how much the generational gap really comes into play when it comes to the approach of the different economic understandings of how we have to solve these issues. Well, once you're caught up in a certain mindset and in a certain process, and you've just gotten lulled into a sense of security, even though the sense of security that you've been lulled into is realistically a passive state of subjugation due to the nature that you have been consistently browbeaten and put down through propaganda and I would argue economic turmoil that has led to the fact of you thinking, well, if we do anything dramatic, then it will only lead to the process of something even worse possibly happening. I'd rather just keep it as it is so we're on this consistent track and we do not end up spiraling out of control, which is an understandable mindset. But the thing is, when you're sitting there and you're down by 10 and you're in the bottom of the ninth, you're going to have to go for it no matter what. And that's what people really need to understand. So what we see here is Javier Milei challenging socialist candidate Sergio Massa. And the reason this is so important is because this is for the soul of the future of the country. And I'm not necessarily arguing for the standards of, let's say, democracy being the thing that wins over the future of the day for the people of Argentina. What I'm arguing is the fact is that the cultural shift that will take place within this generation and the next, whether Javier Milei wins this election or not, will be a major cultural precedent that will say many things for many people. And one thing that will be most important is the question that will be answered. When did politics start for you? And for so many within Argentina, they will be able to say, with Javier Milei. And that, my friends, is how we change the culture and how we change the future and how we detach ourselves from the nature of the corrupt structure that is the state. Because with the process of imbibing future generations with the understanding of the nature of how evil it is to be orienting yourself under the structure of a totalitarian system that is the superstructure of governments and global governments, well, it turns out that we'll be able to turn the tide and we'll be able to stop these bastards where they stand. I'm going to go ahead and end it now and jump into this video. Let's go. From the Financial Times, a normal guy, Argentina's radical Milei struggles to rebrand for runoff vote. And why is it that he's struggling to rebrand? Well, it's not that he's actually specifically struggling, it's just that he's not going to be being as brash with his rhetoric specifically, and he will not be wielding that of the chainsaw so openly, and this is something that they use to symbolize the metrics of tearing down the state and chopping into bits piece by piece, which I will admit I am a fan of. What we see is Libertarian seeks less eccentric image as he competes for moderate voters with Economy Minister Sergio Massa. And Milei's eccentric message is what got him to this point, which is something I think libertarians within the United States should really keep in mind, something that the LP of New Hampshire really seems to understand. Libertarian economist Javier Milei powered through the early stages of Argentina's presidential election on the strength of a radical plan, an eccentric persona, and a chainsaw. Milei wielded the tool for dramatic photo opportunities to evoke his plans to take a chainsaw to the state, but facing a final runoff poll on November 19th in which moderate voters will be key to defeating the economy minister Sergio Massa, Milei has been forced to attempt a rebrand. Now the chainsaw appears to have been put away for a while. The former tantric sex coach and cosplay enthusiast who also exchanged insults with the Pope ahead of the first round is trying to recalibrate his anti-establishment message into a blander promise of change. Let's cover exactly how the media works here. They don't talk about the fact of how Javier Milei is an economist. They don't talk about his history being in a rock band. They don't talk about the fact of how he's interested in Austrian business cycle, Austrian economics, the factors of how there's so many different approaches to economics. They don't care about any of that. They don't talk about none of it. None of the things that really matter to him. What they go for is he's a sex coach, he's a cosplay enthusiast, and then he insulted the Pope. That's it. They don't actually care to give you the merits of what's valuable when it comes to the nature of your character. All they care about is tarring and feathering you so they can slander you in the public eye. And this is exactly why the journalist class is nothing more than scum on the bottom of your shoe, and you should treat them like nothing more than tobacco executives trying to peddle you poison. What we see is the election is about whether or not we want to stay on the path we're on, he told his supporters last week. With Massa, we already know where we're going. More populism, more inflation, more corruption, and more privileges for his friends. Milei, a first-term congressman, emerged as a frontrunner in Argentina's election in August after promising to heavily cut spending, burn down the central bank, to dollarize the economy, and replace Argentine peso, which he labeled worth less than excrement, with the US dollar. And here's the deal. When I saw that he was going to be going after the centralized structure of Argentina's government, and he was going after the Argentinian central bank that backs their peso, I was like, oh my God, the CIA has had enough. And then immediately following that, it talks about the fact of how he wants to attach himself to the US dollar and attach Argentina to the dollar as well as Bitcoin. And I was like, never mind, he's bought himself a moment. He's not going to be winning a journalist award. What we see is last month he scored a disappointing first-round election result, winning 30% of the vote, below pollsters' expectations, and behind 37% for Massa of the center-left Peronist government. Well, it appears now that this will be a major factor, because what we see is, as we've talked about, they will be going for the more moderate voters, but with that, many of the more moderate right-wing voters would have been going for someone like Patricia Bullrich. And we can see that Bullrich will now be supporting Javier Milei in the second round of Argentina elections. We must join forces for a higher purpose. And this I can genuinely respect, because it's the nature of understanding that socialism will be the abject destruction of your economy to the nth degree, even further than it already has been. Argentina currently suffering 130% inflation at the current rate, for those who currently are unaware. Much like the absolute destruction of what happened to the economy of Zimbabwe and Weimar Germany, we see it is happening to Argentina. And with it, if the U.S. continues to go down this path that will only extend us further past the point of us being $34 trillion in debt, we too will go the way of a reverse financial crash, and it will cause hyperinflation, which will lead to the value of the dollar being nothing. And if you do not understand the nature of how low the value of currency can go, during the time of Weimar Germany, when Germany had to pay back all of the debts from the destruction from what happened during World War I, well, what happened? They had to pay back roughly $33 trillion, and with it, all of the money had to come out of what they had in their government, and within the financial backing that was supposed to be, let's say, the structural housing for all of the people within Germany to feel stable financially, so they could not feel like they were dying within the economic process. And here's the thing. What happened to the currency? The currency fell to a degree that was unfathomable. It took 1 trillion marks to equal $1 US. Now let that sink in. Not 1 million, not 10 million, not 100 million, not a billion, not 10 billion, not 100 billion. 1 trillion marks to equal $1 US. And this is where the whole idea comes from, of people making the reference that people were just having wheelbarrows full of cash. It's in reference to this time where people had wheelbarrows full of cash and they were burning them as fuel for fires in their homes, because it had more sustainability to heat their homes than it would to actually buy products, because, as I stated, you needed 1 trillion marks per the equivalent of $1 US. Genuinely staggering. What we see is, from the Buenos Aires Herald, major union leader withdraws support from Milei after Bullrich's endorsement. Isn't this fascinating? What we can see is people still have their political alignments, and even with the fact of people trying to come together to, let's say, tackle the demon that is the socialist capture of the Argentinian economy, what do we have? We have people that still come out and are not willing to support the nature of coming together, and as Patricia Bullrich said, joining forces for a higher purpose. No, we have people that are just saying, you know what, I'm not okay with that. I don't support Bullrich. I think I'll go ahead and throw my support behind Massa. And with it, I wonder how many people will be swinging in this nature because they hold a perspective where they genuinely despise someone and the perspectives akin to Patricia Bullrich. Now we see from Reuters, Argentinian polls show election race tightening. Winner hard to call. Here's why I think this is so incredibly fascinating. Solely because we do not actually have proper runoff elections here in the United States akin to what we have going on in Argentina. As you can see, due to the nature of what happened in 2020 and 2016, all we have is consistent speculation and people who have no respect for the espoused democratic process that they claim to value so much. And with it, if their person who they support doesn't win, many of the times we just see people calling the fact that the election was stolen. We saw it with Al Gore and Bush. We saw it with Hillary Clinton and Donald Trump. We saw it with Donald Trump and Joe Biden. It really just depends on if the fact is, if your candidate doesn't win, many of times people come out and criticize now the fact that, well, I didn't get my way, so clearly this isn't a system that's worth supporting. Something to consider, because the nature is, if a system is going to subject you to taxation to the point where they are taxing you into poverty, and on top of it they are not taking care of the civilian populace, with the money that they are siphoning from you, and then they are also destroying the money that you are actually using, at what point should you actually respect these people? At what point should you want to live under a system that they deem necessary and valuable if what they deem valuable is destroying your ability to move upward through the economic ladder? Here we see Argentinian Milei keeps edge over Massa with 1 week to go before presidential runoff. This is from Bloomberg. Libertarian is vowing to slash spending and dollarize the economy. He and Peronist rival will clash Sunday in a televised debate. Well, the debate has already happened, and with it, I couldn't watch it because there were no English captions, so I wasn't actually able to see anything from this. But the thing that I would love to see, if anyone can actually link me a video where there are English captions or subtitles or anything so I can go watch this, even if there is an English transcript where I can go read the conversations, I will gladly go read it. And if you can link that in the description down below, thank you very much, or link it in the comments, I should say. Thank you. Anyways, moving on, we see Argentina's presidential candidates debate ahead of the uncertain runoff, and this is from Reuters. And the thing that I want to cover with this, and this is what's so important, you'll see AOL here. Many a times when you're trying to access an article and you don't have the ability to read it because they have it behind a paywall, well, you can go to a place like AOL, or you can pull up Microsoft Edge and use the Microsoft Edge Bing browser specifically to search for stories, and it will bring it up within the Microsoft Edge filter, or it will bring it up within the AOL filter structure. And what it does is it gives you the article outside of their paywall, so you don't have to give the journalist class a dime. You can sidestep them, prove their irrelevancy, and genuinely laugh at the fact that you are once again finding a way to make sure that these people do not earn an extra dime. All right, let's go ahead and jump into this article from what I would say is one of the best pieces The Economist has put out when it comes to the nature of showing how much they love to put a spin on things. Let's jump into it. I have a confession to make. I was wrong. This article is not written by The Economist. It is in fact written by The Guardian. Moving on, they are still smear merchants nonetheless. Economists warn electing far-right Milei would spell devastation for Argentina. More than 100 economists, including Thomas Piketty and J.T. Gauch, have published an open letter ahead of the country's November 19th runoff election. The election of the radical right-wing economist Javier Milei as president of Argentina would probably inflict further economic devastation and social chaos on the South American country, a group of more than 100 leading economists have warned. Just a thought. These 100 leading, let's say, experts, because we all know that we have to listen to the expert class, because if you don't listen to the experts, then you're not listening to the people that matter. And I remember for the past 3 years when we were told we had to consistently just listen to the experts, you have to pay attention to what the experts are saying. And it turned out the fact is that they were wrong almost at every single turn when it came to handling the nature of the crisis that we were suffering under. Just a thought. I wonder if we're dealing with the same exact thing here, considering the nature of, well, these 100 leading economists weren't able to see the process that the people of Argentina are now suffering 140% of inflation. If you don't have the ability to project the mindset to understand the future of what's going to happen because of the policies that you're advocating for, at what point should we be referring to you as an expert in anything? In an open letter published ahead of Argentina's crunch November 19th election, The Economist said that they understood the deep-seated desire for economic stability among voters, given Argentina's frequent financial crises and recurring bouts of very high inflation. Well, here's the deal. It doesn't matter if you're in Argentina or not. No one wants to be living under the fact of deep-seated desires for economic stability because you're suffering from crisis. That is something that is such a bullshit political platitude. It's like, we understand that you want to live under better economic conditions, and that's what we're advocating for. It's like, then why is everything you're advocating for leading to the turmoil that these people have to suffer under? 4 in 10 citizens currently live in poverty, and annual inflation is close to 140%, a crisis Milei has vowed to fix by defeating his rival Argentina's finance minister Sergio Massa and taking dramatic measures such as abolishing the central bank and dollarizing the economy. You go, brother, you go. However, while apparently simple solutions may be appealing, they are likely to cause more devastation in the real world and in the short run, while severely reducing policy space in the long run. Well, here's the deal. We're trying to reduce the size and scope and scale of government. We want less space for policy in the long run. Just a thought. The letter said Milei's proposals, while presented a radical departure from traditional economic thinking, were actually rooted in laissez-faire economics and fraught with risks that make them potentially very harmful for the Argentine economy and the Argentine people. Oh, you mean the fact that it could possibly get worse? Because at the rate that it's already going, well, they're just on the track to be Zimbabwe or Rhodesia. So is it really the fact that we should just stay on the same path and not divert whatsoever? Because at what point, as Albert Einstein said, if you're doing something over and over and expecting a different result, that itself is the definition of insanity. Milei has also claimed that taxes are theft, social justice programs and the finance that support them are an aberration, and the state was invented by the devil, and God's system is the free market. Chef's kiss. Genuinely one of the greatest things I've ever heard a politician say. The state was invented by the devil, God's system is the free market. But in their letter, the economists warned that a major reduction in government spending would increase already high levels of poverty and inequality and could result in significantly increased social tensions and conflict. Well, guess what? There's already incredibly high social tensions and conflict within Argentina, wrought with economic despair, and it's because of the policies that people like this have consistently advocated for. So maybe it's time for a switch up and we see what happens when we get a change going. With less than a fortnight until one of the most important elections in Argentina's recent history, the election looks too close to call. Milei was widely considered the frontrunner before last month's first round, although he unexpectedly finished second with 29.9% of the votes to Massa's 36.6%. Since then, however, the eccentric economist has been endorsed by two prominent conservatives, the third-place candidate, Patricia Bullrich, and the former president, Mauricio Macri. I don't know how to say that. My apologies to everyone in Argentina. Please go ahead and bully me in the comments and explain to me how I'm supposed to pronounce this. I live in South Texas and I'm surrounded by nothing but Hispanics, and most of my friends are Hispanics, and I promise you, if they heard me pronounce that name the way that I just did, they would bully me till the end of time, as I so fucking deserve. The fact that I just dropped the ball on that so hard is fucking pathetic. Moving on. Fuel shortages have also undermined Massa's campaign. What we see is the managing director of Buenos Aires-based consulting firm, I don't know what that says, Something Group, said that as they entered the final stage, the two candidates needed to spin the election in different directions. Milei needed to focus the debate on economic failings of his opponent, and the Peronist movement, which has held power for the 16 of the past 20 years. Massa, meanwhile, needed to concentrate on Milei's volatile character and convince voters not to support an extravagant, angry, crazy, loose cannon such as his rival. He will try to show you an emotionally unstable and violent and aggressive and extremely polarizing and divisive figure, said Diaz, who was not sure which efforts would be given enough fuel to the fire to allow Argentinians' economic woes to be sufficed. And what he says is, if you ask me, Milei has an edge. Milei, who bursts into an uncontrollable fits of rage at a mere mention of the 20th century English philosopher and economist John Maynard Keynes, is unlikely to be impressed by the open letter. Milei considered Keynesians who challenged the idea that free markets could provide full employment and economic growth as Marxists. And I salute that ideal. The thing is, if you haven't seen the clip of Milei exploding when someone mentioned Keynes and why he doesn't believe with the Keynesian model of economics, it's amazing, and he just starts losing it and ranting about the fact of all of these morons, these retards that support socialism, and how the people who are Keynesians eventually are nothing more than socialists that support a different structure of economics that doesn't support any bit of prosperity but nothing more than subjugation of the civilian populace. It's fantastic. I fucking loved it. Anyways, I'm going to go ahead and end it there. What we have to cover is the second to last paragraph of this, and it says, Massa, meanwhile, needed to concentrate on Milei's volatile character and convince voters not to support an extravagant, angry, crazy, loose cannon such as his rival. And why is that? Because they have to show you the factors of something that will activate you on an emotional level and activate your monkey brain, rather than showing you something that will genuinely put a, I would say, strong, deep, and structured thought process for you to work yourself through logically. And because of the fact that they do not present this for you, you can understand that these people are not someone you can trust. If they're not delivering you information and what you can consider close to an objective standard without a spin, then realistically, these are people that you should look at with a very scrutinous eye. And the thing that we have to cover is this is the same exact tactic that they use on Trump. He's extravagant, he's angry, he's crazy, he's a loose cannon, he's nothing more than an angry rival, he has no actual desire to help the people of this country. But here's the thing, the firebrand rhetoric is enough. And let's say maybe Donald Trump or Javier Milei actually don't have a desire to help the country. Well, what they've done is activate the base within these countries to allow their people to realize that the people within power that are ruling them are nothing more than clowns who are oligarchic gangsters that are extorting the populace from the value of their labor. I'm going to go ahead and end it there. Tell me where I'm wrong in the comment section down below. God bless the people of Argentina, and I really hope Javier Milei wins this election, and it'll be really fascinating to see the nature of how this country restructures itself economically and governmentally, because I would be absolutely happy to just sit there with a lawn chair and some popcorn and watch Javier Milei go around with his chainsaw, chopping off the parts of the federal government that he deems inessential. Because many of the times, as we saw over the past 3 years, they told many people they weren't essential. And well, it's time people told government their place, that they themselves are inessential workers. I'm going to end it there. Thank you for watching. Thumbs up if you liked it. Thumbs down if you didn't. Tell me where I'm wrong in the comment section down below. Stay lovely. Stay great. Subscribe if you enjoy this kind of content. Peace out.